Did Jamaica betray Cuba to appease a self-centered foreign power? In destroying the solidarity between Jamaica and Cuba, has and Your Highness, the leader of the JLP government of Jamaica, put Jamaican lives at risk, extending waiting time to see GPs or have surgical procedures, put at risk maternity care, reduced the number of Jamaicans who can have their sights restored. Get out! 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 Look! Get out! And Your Highness, leader of the JLP party of Jamaica, the government of Jamaica. Am I weird? Get out! Get out! Am I kid? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? Get out! 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 What a thingy? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? What a thingy? What a thingy? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? What a thingy? The Motivator Show would examine the evidence. Did Jamaica betray Cuba to appease a self-centered foreign power? In destroying the solidarity between Jamaica and Cuba, has and Your Highness, the leader of the JLP government of Jamaica, put Jamaican lives at risk, extending waiting time to see GPs or have surgical procedures, put at risk maternity care, reduce the number of Jamaicans who can have their sights restored. Get out! 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 Look! Get out! And Your Highness, leader of the JLP party of Jamaica, the government of Jamaica. Am I weird? Get out! Get out! Am I here? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? Get out! 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 What a thingy? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? What a thingy? What a thingy? To get in medical care. What a thingy? The Motivator Show would examine the evidence. Did Jamaica betray Cuba to appease a self-centered foreign power? In destroying the solidarity between Jamaica and Cuba, has and Your Highness, the leader of the JLP government of Jamaica, put Jamaican lives at risk, extending waiting time to see GPs or have surgical procedures, put at risk maternity care, reduced the number of Jamaicans who can have their sights restored. Get out! 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 Look! Get out! And Your Highness, leader of the JLP party of Jamaica, the government of Jamaica. Am I weird? Get out! Get out! Am I here? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? Get out! 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 What a thingy? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? What a thingy? What a thingy? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? What a thingy? The Motivator Show will examine the evidence.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's the motivator here. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. You got to believe it, people. You have to believe it. Success is yours for the taking. It is a mindset. Absolutely. And today we've got yet another inspirational podcast. We can address that issue. Yeah, as you see in the intro video. Yeah. This is an important podcast. Mhm. We're going to examine the evidence as to why Jamaica has broken solidarity with Cuba after 50 years of solidarity with Cuba. And Cuba, the Cuban people, the Cuban medical mission in Jamaica, have saved tens of thousands of lives, conducted millions of procedures to improve the health and well-being of Jamaica. Why on earth would the government of Jamaica commit such a, well, self defeating act? We'll examine that in approximately what, 40 minutes' time. We have the keynote interview, and the interview will be thorough, in depth. We'll get below the surface. We will reveal the truth. Oh, yes, and the truth shall set us free. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. But between now and then, as you know, we've got a lot to pack in because the Motivator channel here on YouTube is very much a campaigning channel, issues of social concern, of conscience to us all. We intend to continue, regardless of where we are. We will continue and be assured success is yours, ours for the taking. Be assured, be assured. So let's go right into it first of all. So let's first of all thank a number of our past contributors. What I've been heartened by is the feedback we've received, and I know many of you are either using our chat facility, which we hear on YouTube. You can talk to us directly via the chat facility, okay? Or indeed sending us messages via email. And indeed, we received some really, well, I've got to say, truly encouraging emails. If you wish to send a message to us, please, there we go. That's the email address. It's the Motivator Show 501 at gmail.com. We welcome all communications and thank you for those warm words that we've received. Thank you so much. Thank you. We try hard to give you the very best. Okay. And as you are viewing us here on YouTube, of course, you can always subscribe. It does help us out. It tells the YouTube algorithm that the content's here. It's worthwhile. It's worthwhile circulating to the billion or so YouTube subscribers. That really does help. Please help us out to extend the word. Yep. Help us out. There you are. Or give us a thumbs up. The algorithm recognizes the thumbs up or need to subscribe. It's free, but it really does help us out. And we appreciate all of you and the support you've given to us. The real encouragement that we continue on and on and on. And we will never stop. We'll continue on. Absolutely. Well said, people. Well said. And keep up the good work, each one of you. Each one of you. So the first of my guests I want to recognize, and again, this is no preference order. Okay, it's quite random. Okay, but this time, I want to. You will recall that special episode on the power of their voices, the storytellers, the jellies. Yeah, those who are the custodians of our oral history. Okay, these were people with incredible memories, incredible minds, and could, of course, trace your your family lineage, and tell you of your past generations, or the people that you come from, and tell you about those people, their culture, traditions, their milestones. Very important people in African cultures across the continent, across the continent. To Jelly, I want to say a big thumbs up to Jelly Chinyere. Wasn't she fantastic? Absolutely inspirational. You know, I had the pleasure to have a word with her earlier this week. And truly, each time I hear her words, I ask of her, please, I want a story. Outstanding human being, truly inspirational. She, of course, restores that sense of self. She, of course, restores that sense of purpose, understanding the true history, not this propaganda we're exposed to about African, Caribbean, African people's history. Our history from our voices, from our memories. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Jelly Chinyere. Thank you so much. And if you've not watched that particular episode of The Motivator Show, the podcast is on, go to our YouTube channel and you see it quoted under podcast. We've organized it into bite-sized chunks, about 10, 15 minutes. So you can watch it for 10, 15 minute pause, come back to it. But it's truly is an inspirational experience. Thank you for each one of you and for your warm messages in support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We would, of course, give promotion to the storytelling festival in our next episode of The Motivator Show. So watch this space. Watch this space. Jelly, thank you. And for all the jellies across the continent, across the Caribbean, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, truly inspirational. It's such a privilege to do these podcasts, I have to say, because I'm put in touch with such inspired persons. They are truly inspired. Okay. I also want to recognize another group of people. And of course, you recall the episode that we committed in which we asked that Venezuelans remember the Ethiopian victory. Yeah. And that's the victory of Adwa. It was, and indeed, an important occasion. An important occasion. It was an occasion to recall that it was possible to resist foreign incursions into a country. In this case, Ethiopia, one of the very few two countries on the continent of Africa that was not colonized. I want to give my best wishes to all Ethiopians and recognize you for your courage, your strength, and determination. Okay. I'm going to give praise and respect, of course, to members of the Ethiopian Tahida Orthodox Church and recognize you and say thank you for each and every one of you. Well done. Well done. And long may you continue your great works. And long may you continue great works. Well done to each and every one of you. Thank you. And that was an outstanding episode. Again, go to the YouTube channel, you'll see it quoted. Venezuela, remember the Ethiopian victory. Africa, the Caribbean, remembers too the Battle of Adwa. If you don't know about that battle, it's an important one. And what it does, it counter the alternate propaganda about victories on that continent. It's quite country, huh? You will not see it in these big medias. Yep. No, 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 no. You'll see it here on The Motivator Show. Again, to each and every one of you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I also want to give praise and respect. And I believe this is a person of true distinction. Okay. You recall my guest, Sipui Belenka. Yeah? In that episode, we addressed the issue of Africa rising through spiritual leadership and integrity. Mhm. It was an important episode of the Motivator Show. Okay, he is indeed a truly thoughtful, wise person. Okay, and was able to understand the fundamentals, what drives the people forward. Okay, if you've not watched that episode, I urge you to do so. Yeah? I urge you to do so because the truth shall set us all free. I say again, the truth will set us all free. And together we can be far greater than our individual parts. And the last person I want to give recognition to, and that's the leader of the Burkinabes, or indeed the people of Burkina Faso here in Britain. Okay. You recall that episode in which we, and the title is Burkina Faso 2026, The Vision Changing Africa. A truly inspired episode of The Motivator Show. Okay. If you've not watched that one, I urge you to do so. Go to the channel and find it. Burkina Faso 2026, The Vision Changing Africa. It was truly inspirational. I want to give praise and respect to the President of Burkina Faso, His Honorable Excellency, President Ibrahim Traore. Thank you. And as the leader, one of the key leaders of the ACUP, the African Continental Unity Party, would say, is ensuring that, here we go, we do not celebrate a single person, we celebrate a whole people, an entire people. We do not put all our faith in a single person. I say again, not a single person, but in the entire people. Because the philosophy and understanding of those people collectively is an awesome combination. So the people of Burkina Faso, thank you. The land of the upright people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well done. Well done, each and every one of you. Well done, well done. Whew. Oh, okay. Look, if we're only in the first quarter of this year, we've had some outstanding episodes of the Motivated Show, and I'm so blessed. We're all blessed to have these guests to share their wisdom, their knowledge with us all, okay? Their empathy, their philosophies with us. It's been truly inspirational. Each one of you, thank you. Those of you who support the channel, thank you again. Absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. Again, thank you. I now move on to the other aspects of this show. And that's, of course, the issue of our lifestyle. Mhm. Lifestyle messages are included in the Motivator Show because far too many people are dying before their time. Mhm. In their 50s and 60s, but really they should be dying in their 90s or hundreds. Mhm. I use the word dying deliberately so it's clear what the intent is. We want to stop this, and we can to taking deliberate actions. Our length of our life is very much related to our lifestyle, our paying attention to ourselves, what our bodies need, what our mind needs, what our spirit requires. And we give our body, our mind, our spirit what is required. You live, we will all live longer, healthier, and we can work at it, happier lives. Mhm. So the Motivator Shows is part of that campaign to change our attitude to food, change our attitude to exercise, change our attitude to mental health, to change our attitude to our spiritual health. Mhm. So we take deliberate steps to protect each one of that component parts of us. We, I feel we. Mhm. So the Motivator Show is dedicated to upholding and providing sound advice. You always should seek professional advice, but sound advice. Okay. And we hope we make a small contribution to improve the overall world's health and well-being. It is a mission of this podcast, of this channel, that we should display empathy for all human beings, regardless of who you are. We are indeed our brothers and sisters' keepers. We are indeed our brothers and sisters' keepers. Don't let anyone say otherwise. We are indeed our brothers and sisters' keepers. If we don't care of the least able, the most vulnerable, the most frail, how can we judge ourselves as worthy? Mhm. Oh, yes. So we are unrepentant in spending no more than 5, 6 minutes to lifestyle messages. I want to give praise to those who have devoted their lives to the medical profession. Mhm. I want to give praise and respect to those who've devoted their lives to upholding our human spirits. I want to give praise and respect to those who, even in the face of extreme adversity, have not lost their moral compass and remain focused, dedicated to helping others. I want to give praise to each and every one of you. So, here on the Motivator Show, this channel, we will make a small contribution to that overall campaign to improve our health and well being. So, I want you to listen to not my word, but to the words of this professor. The advice provided is remarkably straightforward, I have to say. But if you could follow these simple steps, the 6 simple steps, it will improve our overall health and well being. And I hope you would agree that this is a worthwhile venture. Okay. I hope you would agree that the word of this professor is simply common sense. And we should work hard at adhering to the advice. Mhm. So I want you to listen to the advice given by this professor. Hmm. What say you? Professor Kevin Fenton says, I'm a public health director. Here are 5 things you can do to improve your health. 1. Mindful and balanced eating. Nourish wisely. Eat whole, balanced meals with awareness to support energy and well-being. 2. Get outside. Be with nature. Time outside reduces stress, improves mood, and strengthens your connection to the world. 3. Stay curious, stay engaged, explore new interests, keep your mind sharp, build social contacts, and boost your happiness. 4. Get active, move it or lose it. Move daily, lift weight, and do cardio. Exercise, improve physical, mental, mood, and energy. 5. Prioritize rest and sleep. Disconnect. Rest. Quality sleep supports mental clarity, emotional balance, and overall health. It's straightforward, isn't it? Yeah? It's straightforward. If you could just follow we dedicated entire life to our health and well-being. But to resolve all that experience, all that skill into a few words, a few sentences that we can hear and respond to. If we are able to do so, it could make a real difference to your general health and well-being. When I was talking, remember you heard these messages and responded and put together and coming with common purpose and understanding. You work together. If you work together, you make common purpose. You're likely to succeed together. Yes, you can do fast and do it by yourself. If you do it together, then you're likely to have sustained, long-lasting success. That's how civilization will grow. People working together, creating a common purpose, understanding working together. It's the only way through it. I want to show you an example of people who've heard these messages. It's people to their personal lives, to their families' lives. They come together, regardless of their religious faith, regardless of their social standing, regardless of their gender, regardless of their age, they come together, creating concepts, understanding, work together. It's only way through. Watch this. This is an example together. It's understanding the collective work. They're understood and we work together. Across boundaries, across communities, across ethnicities, they're more likely to succeed together. Let's these people exercise now. I hope you don't have to sit there and watch. That even this today, you move your legs, and you should stand up and participate for 2 minutes in a short exercise session. And then you be assured that You'll be watching the Motivated Show for many years into the future. Watch this. Here you go. Wonderful. Look at that. There you are. That's it. I'm going to pause there. So that's it, people. Just a few minutes of lifestyle messages. And we hope these messages are received well and in the intent that we hope you understand. The keynote interview will be in 14 minutes. 14 minutes. So I've got a little more to pack in before that keynote interview, but be truly an inspired experience. I am telling you, it'll be truly inspired. So that was our lifestyle messages. And I hope many of you come together in common aim, common purpose, and exercise together. Okay. I know it's a challenge, Obesity is a big issue at the moment. People just too big, particularly our women, too big, heavier than men, too big. And of course, it has long-term health consequences. Diabetes, again, is a big issue. We can combat it. We need to be conscious of being in good physical shape and, of course, be conscious of what we eat. I would always recommend avoid those E numbers, so artificial food wherever possible. Hydrate, drink sufficient electrolyte water, a little bit of salt and minerals and so on, not just plain water. Mhm. And together we will transform your health. Always take the advice of your clinician, your doctor, your GP. Always take that advice. But this general advice applies to the overwhelming majority of our audience. Praise be, praise be. And long may you be well. Thank you, thank you. This is a campaigning channel. There are issues of concern that we wish to always bring to your attention, issues that are not being discussed on the mainstream news platform. Or they are, it's only very intimate, very rare discussions. One such issue, one such issue I must bring to your attention is the issue of FGM. Those of you who don't understand that acronym, it stands for female genital mutilation, or the cut, as is another euphemism used in some cultures and places. This is where, of course, women, most intimate parts are mutilated, cut. Why do I bring this particular issue in each of our podcasts? Because women are, what, 50% of our population? Okay. Far too many women, more than 200 million women have been mutilated in this manner. Some are referred to be some cultural or rites of passage or whatever. I've spoken to far too many women who live with the consequences. I know it's difficult for some people here to hear and to understand, and I get it. It may be a turnoff, and I get that, and I respect that. I get it. Okay. But I've spoken to far too many women for whom this is a living trauma. And I will not stand by. Here on the Motivator Show, we will not stand by and watch and say nothing. That is not acceptable. Okay. Here in this part of London where I reside, we have a remarkable human being. She's an elected official. Her name is Councillor Naima Ali. Okay. She is indeed an FGM survivor and now an ambassador to advocate for the eradication of this practice. Okay. I want to put on the screen for you, and please bear with us. This is the Motivator Show, of course. Just bear with us. 'Cause I know many of you say, well, I don't know women for whom this has happened to, and I get that. I get that. And I don't worry. But just stay with us. Just hear the messages. 'Cause you may counter your thoughts and suffering in silence. And all they require is understanding, some empathy from us all. So here we are. As I mentioned, Councillor Naima Ali, a former mayor of Southwark here in London. And this is her message to us all, and I hope you will hear it. Unshackled Duma is a London based organisation that empowers women and girls, particularly from Black, Asian, and so called world majority and Muslim communities. The organisation focuses on promoting self empowerment, autonomy, and advocacy, with a strong emphasis on combating female genital mutilation, FGM. It raises awareness about FGM's harmful effects and supports survivors and works towards eradicating the practice. If you wish to reach out to Councillor Naima Ali, who is indeed an FGM ambassador, a survivor, the email address is unshackledduma, followed by digit2@gmail.com. I repeat, unshackledduma, followed by digit2@gmail.com. I commend the work of this outstanding human being to you and give her the support, both men and women, that she amply deserves. And if in doubt, ask questions of her, send a message, and she'd be more than happy to speak directly to you. Thank you. Thank you for your understanding. Another campaign issue, again, this is the Motivator Show. These are issues which are not in the mainstream press, mainstream media, indeed, called social media. But here in the Motivator Show, it's important that we live up to our principles. And those people, those circumstances which are not being discussed, but still continue to have a profound impact on people's lives, are discussed here on the Motivator Show without fear or favor. One such issue I need to bring to your attention, and that's, of course, the issue of climate change and what it's causing to our atmosphere. Yeah, global warming. It's real. If you live in the Caribbean, in more recent years, you've experienced a series of very violent hurricanes. In recent years, the Earth has had record high temperatures. Um, the ice in the Antarctic and Arctic areas are melting at an ever increasing rate. It is truly, truly, truly a life or death situation that we have to contend with. It may not be apparent now here in these northern climes where we are at the moment, but it will definitely impact these parts of the world given time. But it is impacting the islands of the Caribbean. In 2024, Hurricane Beryl devastated islands across the Caribbean, including Grenada and, of course, Jamaica, and went right across to Haiti. In 2025, we had Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 hurricane. In other words, winds of up to 185 miles an hour. I believe that's nearly 200 kilometers per hour. Devastating winds. Few buildings can actually withstand such winds. Mhm. And across Jamaica, you have homes which are, uh, I'm not going to say, yeah, flimsily built of wood and tarpaulins. Yep. Devastated. Whole communities in Jamaica remain to this day devastated. Many public buildings have been destroyed. Yeah, many public buildings. There's an organization here in the UK called PNP UK who said that they remain committed to bring this issue to light. And by one public building after another, raise the resources to build back better. We here at the Motivator Show could not refuse their imploring of us to remind the listeners, to remind the viewers of the devastation caused to Jamaica by Hurricane Melissa. Lives are still in turmoil because of that hurricane. And we're very pleased with what's happened in terms of the contributions made. But the government needs to, well, I don't want to criticize the government here on this matter. I know the government is trying. We all want more from the government, naturally. Okay. But there is at least one institution that PNP UK are now working with to build back better, to harness the resources of the diaspora and the friends of the Jamaican diaspora, to build this school for little ones, babies, build back better. I don't want you to listen to my words. I want you to listen to the words of the school principal. Listen to the compassion, the intelligence, the forthrightness of this woman's voice. Okay, I want you to hear it and not be in any way embarrassed by her words, because she's simply appealing on behalf of that community, those vulnerable members of that community. Listen to her words, and if in doubt, ask questions. But here at the Motivator Show, we've conducted our due diligence, ensured that this is absolutely a campaign that we should get behind. Listen to the words of this school principal. PNP UK Hurricane Melissa Disaster Relief Fund appeal for a better Jamaica.
Good morning, students.
Say good morning, parents.
Good morning, students.
Today is what month are we in?
We are in the month of January.
Everyone, I am Lexia Lewis Hines, principal of the New Building Early Childhood Institution in New Building, Nain, St. Elizabeth. We were adversely affected by the passing of Hurricane Melissa on October 28, 2025. And as such, we lost our school roof, we have lost furniture, books, and other learning materials for our young ones. I am hereby making a plea asking for any contribution that can be given to assist us in further renovating our school building so that our students can return to some semblance of normalcy. We have already received some donations and we're able to cover half the roof. The other half is patched up with the old zinc that was there from before. And as such, any contribution is an investment in our young ones, the future generation. And so this is my plea, asking for any contribution that can be given in assisting us to be better able to facilitate our young students. Thank you so very much.
New building, Early Childhood School, New Buildings District, Nain, St. Elizabeth, Jamaica.
January 21 days old.
On behalf of PNP UK, we hope you would agree that this school needs to be rebuilt so that the children can enjoy the teaching and learning experience. Support the Hurricane Melissa Disaster Relief Fund to build back better the school. Send your donation whatever for to PNP UK. That's at NatWest Bank, sort code 600802, account number 298612333. And in the bank reference, please quote DRF Melissa. Thank you for considering. Thank you for your donations. PNP UK. Thank you for all of you who have already contributed. Thank you. We'll ask the officials from PNP UK in the not too distant future to come back in to the studio, the Motivator Show studio, to give us an update on progress to date. I'm so pleased that I'm able to be a part of this campaign. One public building after another. We in the diaspora, you don't have to be Jamaican, I might add, care. Whatever little, we say in Jamaica, every little make a muckle. In other words, every little bit counts, in other words, yes? We want to thank each and every one of you who have contributed, okay? Every cent, every penny will be accounted for, okay? PNP UK will not take an agency fee. If you use one of these agencies, the charities, they take an admin fee, sometimes 30, 40%, even more in some cases. Not a penny, not a cent in admin will be taken by members of PNP UK. Every cent, every penny will go to build back better that school. I want to thank each and every one of you who've opened your heart, have understood, even if it's just £1, every little make a muckle. Yes, it makes a difference. Thank you for considering. Thank you for hearing this message. The Motivator Show, because this is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. I know you understand. I know you understand. You can see why I'm high on life. Oh, yeah. Such wonderful people, I have to say this. Such wonderful people. Such wonderful people. We've got now no more than 4 minutes before the keynote dialogue, the keynote interview on whether or not Jamaica has betrayed Cuba. Very serious matter. Yeah. In 4 minutes, we'll go there. But there's one more issue I want to just tackle for each and every one of you. Often here on the Motivated Show, we're asked to make announcements and so on. Okay, we make a few announcements, but we only want to make announcements where there's a social value. In other words, there's a real community benefit, a real benefit for the people as opposed to individuals. Okay. There are, of course, times in which we might make an exception or two. Okay, doesn't happen very often, but there are times which we might do so. Okay, and maybe at times we apply principles which are slightly different. On this occasion, this is one such time. Some of you recall we did an interview, a dialogue with a remarkable woman. Mhm. She is indeed the wife of Nnamdi Kanu, a man who stands up for his people people of Biafra, the Ibo people of Nigeria. Mhm. A man who is fearless and understand that unless you stand up for your own people, stand up for what you believe, you are nothing. We had his wife here in the Motivator Show, a quite remarkable human being. Mhm. I just want to give an applaud to her for her courage and determination. That dialogue I had with her, and you could see it, go to the channel, you'll see the episode, was quite remarkable. Okay. I'm immensely proud that I've been in the presence of such persons. She, of course, exemplifies why it's so critical for men and women to work in harmony, mhm, find peace with each other so that prosperity can come to us both. Mhm. A wife who's had to suffer the indignity of being without her husband for lengths of time, their children to be without their dad presence. But I know that family is proud of him. I want to say this now before I go to the main dialogue. We are all immensely proud of Nnamdi Kanu. Thank you for your stalwart. We need a few of him in the Caribbean. We need a few of them here in Britain and Europe. Yes. We need a few of them in the United States of America, across the Americas. We absolutely need them of that caliber across the continent. That's what we need. We stand by what we believe in. I wanted to say that before we go to the main interview. Because some of that strength, that inner strength, comes out in this interview with the person that I was in dialogue with, who I referred to being the great man. He doesn't like it. He is indeed. You listen to his speeches, you understand. Mhm. It was necessary to uphold and say thank you to the members of the IPOB, Indigenous People of Biafra organization. Thank you. Keep up the good work. I know it's tough. I know many want to cast you as villains, only because you want at least greater autonomy, if not independence, from the state they call Nigeria. Because you want to control your own land. What that thing is? Yeah, yeah. They want to control their own land. Yeah. Be upright, like the people of Burkina Faso. Mhm. I want to thank them, each and every one of them. Being in their presence is truly a reminder. Reminder. You must live by your principle, what you believe in, and stand by it without fear or favor. Mhm. So say to his wife, thank you for gracing us with your presence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. It's now time for our keynote interview, keynote dialogue. Has Jamaica betrayed Cuba? Has it betrayed and undermined the solidarity that existed for more than 50 years between the people of Jamaica and Cuba? Yeah, that's what we're going to consider today. So I want you to watch keenly to every word uttered. Okay? So this is the part of the interview. The entire interview will be in a podcast series of 7 or 8 parts, and in 6 hours' time will be published. So it's part of the interview, but you get a good sense of why the podcast is a must watch. Okay? It is indeed a must watch. Okay? a significant effort, significant time has been devoted to perfecting the podcast for you. But this interview in this format is absolutely worth watching, worth listening to. Thank you to each and every one of you who've given support to the Motivator Show. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. If in doubt, ask questions. Okay, that's what I often when I say that I know we're not always believed. Okay, we're not always believed, but often what it takes it is a bit of courage. Yep, it takes a bit of courage. It takes a bit of courage. Time for the interview. Got pen and paper? Get it out. If you've got a digital device, get it ready. Take notes. This will be truly an inspirational experience. Praise Jah, Rastafari. Good morning, everyone. This is the Motivator here, because this is where we translate our words into action, and where success is ours for the taking. I've got another inspirational podcast here for you, and I've got another inspirational man here who's going to give us his wisdom on the situation we have in the Caribbean, Jamaica and Cuba. Question today, and the hypothesis I put to you all: has Jamaica betrayed Cuba? Michael Manley would hear the Honourable Michael Manley's voice soon. Has Jamaica betrayed Cuba? That's the question we're going to address today, okay? And we're going to discuss it in detail, but we're going to discuss it in a manner in which we can all understand. We're not going to be too intellectual, but we are going to get some historical context so that we don't misinterpret the evidence as we bring forth as part of our dialogue. And today I've got one of the great men of the times. He doesn't describe himself as such, but I can tell you, I've listened to some of his speeches, the great men of his time. I'm going to say his name, Abu Akil here, okay? A leading reparation, a leading Jamaican man, let me tell you, leading Jamaican man, right? I'm going to let him introduce himself, say a little bit about himself first of all. Go on, Abu, please tell them.
Yes, I'm a greetings, the motivator. So I'm a African Jamaican, born in the UK, grew up in the UK, dedicated to the upliftment of my own people, and I've done that through one, being connected with my family, finding ways of better connecting with my family, finding ways of better connecting with my community, finding ways of better connecting with organizations that progress our interests, and reparations is at the front line of our interest with regard to all the damage that's been done to us as a consequence of our relationship with Europeans in the West and our relationship with this concept of race, which puts people into black and white. So that's a bit about me. I'm a father, son, father, grandfather, and dedicated to progressing the African world as really the epitome of the human society and frame of reference. That's me, Abu Akil, also known as Paul Francis.
Honor and respect to you, Abu Akil, Paul Francis. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like that. Absolutely right. You're a perfect example of the Jamaican, indeed African diaspora. 92% of Jamaica's population are of African descent. A further 7% of African and mixed ethnicities. Jamaica is an African state. Okay. You're fully conscious, but you recognize you're away from your land. Yep. That's understood.
Yeah,
understood.
that's right.
And what happens in the land is of intimate interest and concern, despite the fact you're away from the land. Okay,
100%.
And there are what, 250 million of us across the Caribbean and the Americas, across the world. Yeah, the African diaspora. Yep, most certainly right. The importance of emphasizing that, and particularly for our cousins there on the continent who are observing this dialogue, okay, is to give some context to this dialogue we're about to enter into. As Abel has described himself, he's emphasized the fact he's an African. It didn't say first, I'm a Caribbean. It didn't say first, I'm a Jamaican. Yeah, he said first, I'm an African.
That's right.
Praise be, praise to Rastafari. That's raised consciousness, okay? It's what being a part of the diaspora is designed to eradicate.
That's right.
These other false identities. We remain African in essence. Yeah, we respect all others, but we remain African in essence. Praise be, praise be. Long may you continue, sir, my brother. Thank you. But you're here today because you have one of those wonderful analytical minds. I know you absorb knowledge, information like I'm about to say a Hoover, because that gives away my age, doesn't it? I was about to say that, but and those of a certain age will recognize the joke,
Hoover,
those younger persons. you see what I mean?
And not J. Edgar.
There you go. There you are. A vacuum cleaner. Yeah? You are. He just scoops up. He vacuums up the knowledge. Yeah. He's a natural learner, a continuous learner. Despite your age, you continue to learn and acquire new knowledge, new skills continuously. It never stops. Yeah? It's a lesson for the younger ones. It never stops. To stop is to die. To stop means that the world goes past you. Yeah? Yep, goes past you. Yeah? That's why we continue to acquire experiences and skills, knowledge. Yep. So we can continue to expand our mind and our horizons and our awareness levels. And therefore, at this age, they sometimes refer to us as wise men. African proverb: once you carry your own water, you learn the value of every drop. Do you feel like a wise man?
Well, I don't know. I think we're quite young compared to if we go back to our ancestors. I mean, we're still spring chickens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I go for my 2-3-mile run every day. Exercise, keep this body of mine in trim. Mm-hmm. Here on the Motivator Show, we allocate time for lifestyle messages, which are dedicated to encouraging the audience to exercise, think about what they eat, get away from these artificial foods, yeah, organic where possible, okay? To absolutely consider your mental health as being an integral part of your whole health, and of course, and absolutely being Africans, of course, your spiritual health is a critical component, a critical part of our identities, yeah? That's an integral part of the Motivator Show, and you exemplify it in so many ways. Because I'm not going to give away your age, but I'm assuring you that most people here will be at least 20, 30 years off the age you actually are. And that's a true sign of the genes that you possess, a true sign, okay? But I want to address the issue of the day, okay? Not as a series of questions, but part of a dialogue, okay? What I aim to do today, just for the benefit of the audience, is to put before Abu Akil the evidence, the facts, and we're going to discuss the evidence, the facts, as we proceed, okay? If we get anything wrong, I'm more than happy for you to send us a message. If you're on YouTube, send us a message. That's okay. Say, this is the correct. I want you to send the message to correct what we've got wrong, but also provide an authoritative source So we can verify and affirm the correction you provided. Okay? Because we're not perfect, but we are well read. Okay? So we're not stupid, but we're not so arrogant enough to say that we know it all. Does that make sense? Okay. Because there's a lot going to be packed into this show, and we're going to help you all to understand the facts, the evidence. Okay. And the evidence will start with where we are right now, here in Britain. Because that is the genesis, it's the genesis of the issues we have under discussion between Cuba and Jamaica. Why do we start here in Britain? Let me start. I know you would appreciate this. Okay. I start with the 1948 Immigrant Nationality Act here in Britain. The British Nationality Act 1948, a landmark law passed by the Parliament of the United Kingdom that fundamentally redefined citizenship across the British Empire and Commonwealth. It came into force on 1st of January 1949. The Act created a new legal nationality called Citizens of the United Kingdom and Colonies, CUKC. This applied to peoples born in the United Kingdom, the British colonies, including Jamaica, which was then a British colony, and certain British territories. It also enshrined the right to live and work in Britain. Citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies had the right to enter Britain freely, live and work in the United Kingdom, and settle permanently. And those of you who are reasonably well read will know that Act says if you're born within the British Empire, you're British. Yep. When I was born British. Jamaica was not independent. Yep, it was a part of that empire. Under the 1948 Act, we were born British. In fact, both my parents were born prior to that, but they essentially became British by virtue of that Act of Parliament. There you are. And of course, you and I, we speak English as our first language. Is that right? You speak English as your first language? There you go.
Yeah.
There you are. So again, British. We speak English firsthand. At schools, we were not taught African history. We were taught the kings and queens of what? Britain. Yep. That's the first port of call. So we were born British. We were British. So why do I start there? Because that very fact is important. I want us you all to consider, beyond the screen, to consider post-war Britain. Britain has been a world power for more than 200 years, a leading world power. Okay, up until Bretton Woods, in effect. Okay, the power was rules the waves. Okay. Britain, by 1948, and following the war, was clearly in significant economic decline. Okay? And that decline was further hastened by the war, because, of course, it weakened the economy. And by weakening the economy, it means that the productive part, the factories and so on, had been destroyed. But equally, Britain had lost millions of workers, or they remained or incapacitated. That's right. Yep, that's right. Yeah. Again, if I've got this wrong, I ask those who are more knowledgeable than I, and I will contradict the research that myself and Abu have conducted. Fine. We'd love to see your evidence. Okay. But that is the backdrop. That is the backdrop we're discussing. By the mid to late 50s, the numbers of vacancies in Britain was rising to an alarming rate. Okay. So the British government, in their infinite wisdom, in 1948, was a time of the what we now call what do we call it now? What do you call it? Wind rush.
Yeah.
Go on, tell me.
I'm really unhappy with that concept, but I think we're talking about a particular historical period and our lives and our experiences and how we framed our values. So don't want to cut over you. But
No,
definitely.
I pause because you're quite right. I'm using it as more of a colloquialism because, of course, our parents are, of course, they are heroes and heroines. Okay, young men and women who stretched forth their arms to Britain to seeking opportunities for growth, for personal growth for their families. Yeah, and in many cases, we have estranged families. Part of the family still remain in the Caribbean, and some were here. I'd say in my family may well have happened in yours. Yeah,
it's probably the majority of families were fragmented as a consequence of these young people, strong, ambitious, with all of that energy that migrants bring to any economy. That's our parents. That's what they brought here. And Jamaica lost. The Caribbean islands lost our wealth.
If I may just come on to that loss, because clearly, and it's not fully documented or discussed with the vigor that it deserves. The obvious impact that if you export, I should say, from the Caribbean, a third, 40% of the population, the young population, the able-bodied population, the educated population, the strong, enthusiastic people, you suck them into Britain or indeed the United States, which had a similar program for a period. Okay, what is left in the Caribbean? What is left in this case in Jamaica?
Grandparents and toddlers. What was left behind was the grandparents and toddlers pick up the groundwork, couldn't pick up the infrastructure. The young 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, the drivers of the economy left to build the UK economy. And what was left behind was grandparents, old people and very young people who had to pick up on that infrastructure that gave us the strength, the yam, the banana, the dasheen, the coconut, all of that strength that built us was taken away to America and the UK. That physical strength and that psychological strength, that spiritual strength, that knowledge of those who went before, all of that capacity that we had built up in the Caribbean was exported to the UK and America. That's the reality. That is the reality check that we need to really tune into. The wealth of a population being exported.
Well said, well said. And keeping in mind, during those times, up until 1962, of course, Jamaica was under the direct control of Britain through the Governor General. Yeah, which indeed facilitated the transportation of people from Jamaica to the Caribbean. Indeed, you didn't need a passport because you were already British. All you need was your proof of your landing certificate so that you can get in the country. But otherwise, you didn't need a passport. Did not need a passport. Yeah. I apparently had to get a passport thereafter because we didn't need a passport because we're British. We're already British. Right. 1948 Act decreed that I was born British. Yeah. And bearing in mind the direct control the British Crown, I use the term deliberately, had over Jamaica, totally controlled the means of production, the people of that place. There you are. So that's the backdrop. Again, if you've got that wrong, I'm happy for those more learned persons to send us the note, but provide your sources so we can validate your sources. But that is the historical context. Mm-hmm.
So my reality, course, just in terms of that, and like when we're looking at evidences, there are evidences that you can look at these kind of numerical evidences, the quantity, and then you can look at the quality. And what's sitting here is a human being. I can speak about the quality. I was born here in the UK, and the majority of my family resided in Jamaica. My grandparents, I never met them. Most of my cousins, I never met them, because what happened was my parents were the very bright ones in our district, in our family. Both of my parents were high achievers, and their skill set meant that Britain got their skill set, and I was born in a place where I was removed from my own family. This is the quality. I was removed from my own family, from where my parents' navel string were buried. I was born away from the support and the guidance and the care and the love of my own family, of my own community, that could say to me that my life is worth more than the pittance or the poor treatment that I've experienced in the UK. And I make no bones about it. My experience in the UK has been a hellish one. I'm not going to go on about it, but my experience has been a hellish one. So not only was there a sacrifice insofar as my parents being divorced from their own families and their skills being taken away from their own families, but the children, their children, me, their child, suffered as a consequence of being away from the care of my grandparents and my family. So when you're looking at development, having grandparents with you, growing with your grandparents, is clearly shown as being a force that excels people, not only emotionally and socially, but also academically. The statistics bear that out. So I'm a part of a population that was robbed of familial contacts as a consequence of the UK benefiting from the dynamism, strength, and energy of my parents. I've paid the price personally, and my peers, I can see, have paid the price, and there are numerous statistics.
Let me say this point. Let me say that, because my mother was a sort of specialist nurse in cardiology, and my father was a master builder. You know, two sets of skills desperately in need by Britain at that time, which is why they were enticed to come to Britain by people such as, here you are, those with a knowledge of history, people like Enoch Powell. He visited Jamaica, encouraging Jamaica to the Jamaicans to come to Britain. Yes, Enoch Powell and the like. Those of you, I'd encourage you all, I'll put his face and his name on the screen. I would encourage you to do some research into the background of Enoch Powell. Okay, his speeches came to naught because it didn't happen. But nevertheless, I'll leave you. I won't elaborate further on him. But what has been described by Abu Q is correct. My own family is the same. There are members of my family I've never met in my life, and they're all essentially estranged members.
You mentioned your mothers. You mentioned your mother. My mother came here. She was recruited in Jamaica, and she came here to Whittington Hospital as a trainee, as a nurse trainee. My mother was an exceptional student, one of the brightest kids in her school, or children in her school. And so for her, coming to the UK gave her the opportunity to extend her skill set. So she came to Whittington Hospital. However, the experience in the UK meant that her journey and her skill set wasn't, it didn't develop in the way that she had planned for it to develop. However, I can say she was successful because I'm here now. And I've got two siblings who are here now.
We are appreciative of her. Let me tell you, after all, we wouldn't have you here. We are appreciative. Oh my God, truly appreciative. And what you exemplified, the experience of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans and Caribbeans have very similar experience to yours and indeed my own. Okay, and the impact on the Caribbean, if I may, the impact on the Caribbean I want to capture, because that's what's not discussed enough. We talk about our experience here in Britain, but absolutely that's another podcast in itself. But we do not discuss, and indeed it's not written sufficiently. I've done research. It is not sufficient written descriptors of the impact losing forgive me, what he essentially is, as you describe, a brain drain. Your most youngest, most able-bodied citizens are going over to foreign land, or foreign, as you would say, huh?
Yeah.
More than a third, 40% of the population lost to Britain and, to a small extent, United States of America. So naturally, it was bound to cause problems for a much weaker economy. That, of course, is the Jamaican economy. And naturally, it's going to have a profound impact on the growth of that nation. And we have seen the fact that some of us bemoan the fact that Jamaica is still, it's taken a long time to grow. It's taken a long time to grow because so many Jamaicans had to leave Jamaica just to have a viable lifestyle. Yep.
You can't grow if you don't have a population. You need human beings for your economy to grow, which is an issue Britain's facing at the moment, where it needs, and it's continually sucked human beings for its economy to grow, because the UK population hasn't actually been growing. And it's quite controversial, but the reality is the UK population has not been growing. It's dependent on migrant labour. And it's been consistently dependent on migrant labour. If you look at the population growth in the UK, if we look at the so-called, what they might call, I don't know if you can call them indigenous, but what we're really talking about is the so-called white population. It has not been growing, it has been shrinking. And for the economy to grow, you need human beings, which is why we came here in the 50s and 60s, and that agenda continues to be the case. Human populations are essential for a nation state to grow.
Economic growth.
And Jamaica lost massive proportion of its population.
If I may just draw another parallel here, and this is quite important. We should now bring Cuba into the mix. I believe it was 1959 that Fidel Castro came to power. And he was able to overturn the baristas, I think they were referred to, is that right?
Batista, the fascist dictator.
There you are.
Batista.
Thank you. Coup, cancelling scheduled election and establishing an authoritarian regime. By the 50s, his government was widely criticised for... What was your impression of Fidel Castro and the socialist or communist revolution at that time? What was your impression?
Well, my reading of the economy and the political economy of Cuba at that time was a political economy that privileged a very small minority, an elite, a bourgeois elite that Batista represented. So the quality of life for the majority of the population was hellish. People didn't have access to the basics around food, clothing, shelter, social facilities, and education. We're talking about a population that was essentially, we're just looking at a plantocrat elite that were creaming off the wealth of the nation for a minority. And the whole idea of socialism is that people must be valued first and foremost. Absolutely. If you have a nation state, the population must be valued. And for the population to be valued, we need the state's resources to serve that population. And my reading of Cuba is that revolution exemplified putting things in place that ensure that the population is a part of the decision making. So the local populations were part of the decision making around what happens in their communities. They made sure that everybody had access to housing. They made sure that everyone had access to healthcare. They made sure that everybody had access to education. So you're looking at a coherent economy, political economy, that puts its population first. That's what happened. That's my reading of the Cuban Revolution. Not only were they able to increase the quality of life and increase the mortality rates for its population, it was able to extend that arm, that reach, that technical expertise that was rooted in the value of human beings to others around the world. So they extended their arm into supporting other Caribbean states and supporting African states in their struggles for basic human sovereignty, food,
Absolutely.
clothing.
Can I just, before you go to the other state, let's just talk about Cuba a little more. So, of course, one of the marked achievements of the Castro regime, of course, is literacy rates.
That's right.
It came up from about 8 or 9% up to plus 90% literacy rates. Literacy rates improved significantly under Fidel Castro. The 1961 Year of Education campaign reduced illiteracy from over 20%, bringing the adult literacy rate to over 96% by mobilizing young volunteers. The government made education accessible in rural areas. Numeracy. The number of doctors. In fact, one of the reasons why they could allow doctors to go overseas because they were being trained at too many doctors, too many nurses, too many skills. Yeah, they were excelling because, as you say, they put the human being at the center and ensured that there were innate rights, that you had a right to free healthcare at the point of use. You paid for it for your taxes. You had access to free education. It's free at the point of use. You paid for it for your taxes. Access to clean water. Paid for it for your taxes, and indeed significant subsidies for your home, paid for through your taxes. In other words, access to training and education, paid for through your taxes. These were significant investment in the people, and that's what marked the socialist, indeed communist revolution in Cuba. And clearly, what they had before was barbaric. The essentially Portuguese elite, which many of them migrated to Florida. I believe that there may be some who hold very high office in the United States as of today, were only concerned about themselves. They were happy to monopolize all the wealth and give tiny crumb to the vast majority of people. And that inequality is what the Cuban Revolution was designed to overcome, and they did it successfully. And
I think part of the success as well, I mean, a part of that success has been the rest of the world has benefited from it. So even if we look at it from the viewpoint of setting some standards, just standards of human conduct, that it's a good thing for everyone to be educated. It is a good thing. It is a good thing for everyone to have clean water. It is a good thing. It is a good thing for everyone to have housing. It is a good thing for everyone to have healthcare. These are not kind of luxuries. These are basics that make us human beings. Which what confuses me is that people can question those basic principles of being human. And that you can have this idea that individual interests in stockpiling stuff goes given greater value than ensuring that someone can have a plate of food, a roof over their head. So when we're looking, sorry, I don't want to digress, but so that's Cuba for me. Cuba for me signifies the value that's attached to our collective humanity as opposed to any given individual. We had, as individuals, there's something about the quality of our experience that extends beyond material realities. And so as long as we've got the basics, and Cuba exemplifies that. Cuba is a space where they've got some quite archaic or seemingly archaic physical structures, but at the same time, at the intellectual and the human developmental level, they've gone way beyond the rest of the world. So people may be driving so-called old cars, but the function of a car is to carry human beings from A to B in fulfilling a greater human purpose and meaning. The purpose of a car isn't to have some flashy lights, one person sitting in this vehicle driving along the motorway at 1,000,000 miles an hour and terrifying everybody else and creating chaos. The purpose of the vehicle is to connect human beings together in a meaningful way that elevates the substance of our experience. It's not some technical form of technical masturbation, which I think we're in a place where those are the values that, and I think in terms of this scenario with Cuba and Jamaica, because the scenario is one about how much are we valuing human beings and valuing human life and valuing human interaction. So as I said, in terms of my own experience, yes, mum and dad came to the UK where there was a wealth of infrastructure, a wealth of infrastructure that came from extracting material resources and mental resources from the so-called Commonwealth of the Caribbean or of the Americas and of the African continent. Now, that theft has a human cost.
As a human
and that
cost.
human cost.
Can I ask you to pause there? Let's just pause there because we're going to come into that very, very soon. Because now we've set some context for the Cuban Revolution, why it was necessary. The overwhelming majority of people continue to support that state, the Cuban state. Okay? Let me just take this further. We now bring into the fray Michael Manley. He was elected in 1972. Okay? Significant majority, the PNP, People's National Party of Jamaica. And of course, he was following very much an egalitarian socialist policy. Much of what you described is what he wanted for Jamaicans. Because if you could invest in people, the deficit that Jamaica was still experiencing, that is, of course, the 20 years previously, 10, 15, 20 years previously, of course, the import of people to Britain and United States, okay, could be overcome if the state invested in education, invested in good healthcare, invested in skills, developing skills, invested in the infrastructure, good roads, invested in homes that people can afford and live in a decent home, You ensure that we had clean water supply access, ready access, all these basic items. That's what he wanted for Jamaicans. Because you invest in them, they will grow and they will reward the nation many times over, as is the case in Cuba. So that was his philosophy. Fundamentally, that was his philosophy. Democratic socialism.
So,
we know, of course. Go ahead,
So in terms of the impact of the Cuban Revolution and the impact on Jamaica insofar as Michael Manley being a world exemplar for human dignity and human rights and putting programs in place in Jamaica whereby Jamaicans became equipped with skills. And I'm going to cross over in terms of how do we develop skills? We develop skills by approximation to others with those skills. And that program with Cuba was about accelerating the skill set of the Jamaican population by that cross-fertilization of we need a healthcare infrastructure. Our neighbors are building a healthcare infrastructure. They've progressed at an accelerated rate. Let us build synergy. And that synergy has gone on for 51 years.
Yes, absolutely. And let me just add to that. You're right. That's the synergy has occurred. Bearing in mind, of course, and this bilateral agreement initially was focused on the recruitment of Cuban doctors and nurses would fill those vacancies we had in Jamaica. Okay, and that was the initial trust, okay. And you're right, they'll help to train Jamaicans and so on. But you and I will know that the National Health Service over the past 20, 30, 40 years has had various campaigns to recruit nurses and doctors from the Caribbean.
That's right.
Throughout that time. Similarly, in the education sector, I'm aware of numerous campaigns to recruit teachers from the Caribbean. So,
That's right.
So despite the fact the big importation occurred in the late 50s and 60s, it still continued in slightly lesser form throughout that time, up until 2 years ago. It was still, there were campaigns to recruit teachers from the Caribbean. I've got family members who are now here under those schemes. There was still, as it were, the brain drain into Britain was still occurring. Okay.
I'm going to give you a little story. I'm going to give you a little story, if I can, about a chap who was a headmaster in a school in Mandeville. He was the head of Mandeville School, and he said he came here on a training program. And when he came to the UK, went through the immigration process and whatever. And I'm only talking about within the past 20 years or so. He came here, and when he was about to leave, at the immigration, they were saying, "Why are you leaving? Why do you want to leave so soon?" Essentially, he was being incentivized to stay here. And it was only because of his love of Jamaica that he went back to Jamaica. Because if he had stayed here, he'd be very well off, thank you, for staying here. A lot of incentives were offered to him to stay here. He told me in detail. And he chose, he said, "Look, no, I want to be at home." So yeah, there's a lot. This process is ongoing. Where what exists in the UK is deemed to be of greater value than what we have at home, and I still call it home because my parents called it home. So my mother base, my home base, my mother's base is my home, and so we're constantly being told that what is in the UK is better than what's at home. And we're told that because of the glitters. We're told that because of the pecuniary rewards as individuals. But collectively, where do we gain?
I think that's a fair comment. And I want to tackle some of this because what you're emphasizing, if I take this off, what you're emphasizing, of course, is the real challenge for a place like Jamaica, being able to resist the allure of the wealth that's in Britain and indeed the United States. Okay, the fact that Jamaicans speak English means that we have ready access to Britain and the United States. Okay. What I want to do, though, if I may, Abu, I want to continue to focus on this bilateral arrangement set up by the Honourable Michael Manley. Okay. Democratic Socialists wanted to invest in people, recognize that Jamaica could not grow unless we invest in people. And therefore, in order to fill the skills gap, needed an arrangement with a inspired socialist minds. And the closest place was, of course, Cuba and Fidel Castro. Cuba offered, of course, an example of what Jamaica could become if it invested in people. You'd be overflowing with skills, okay? And therefore will be attractive to companies to invest. That's what the Chinese did. The Chinese invested in the people and therefore built up their skills base and therefore created an ecosystem that companies can invest into and build their manufacturing plant with the confidence that locally there's the skills, the enthusiasm, the workers in the required quantities to fill their factories, to make the many items that we now buy from China. If Jamaica had been given the opportunity to develop on its own reconnaissance without external interference, Jamaica would be very much like China, a highly developed economy. But nevertheless, let's talk about that bilateral agreement between Jamaica and Cuba, between the Honorable Michael Manley and Fidel Castro of Cuba. Okay, what did it result in? Over the period of its existence, and that's why I'm a bit perplexed by the current government of Jamaica. Okay, to date, more than 4,700 Cuban medical personnel have served in Jamaica. Millions of Jamaicans have received treatment. Thousands of surgeries and births have been assisted. Hundreds of Jamaican students have been trained as doctors in Cuba. Again, hundreds of Jamaican doctors have been trained in Cuba. The Cuban Health Ministry said that through the medical brigade, more than 8,176,000 patients of Jamaicans were treated. 74,300 surgical procedures have been performed, and more than 7,000 births were estimated to have been completed as a result of Cuban medical personnel, and more than 90,000 Jamaican lives have been saved. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That's the impact they've had. And indeed, during those big major medical alerts in Jamaica, I should say that during what they call Operation Miracle, that's the term that I provide, Operation Miracle Program, which has been in Jamaica since 2010, the sight of more than 25,000 Jamaicans have been restored. Can you imagine? 25,000 Jamaican sites have been restored or improved. Cuban cooperation has been decisive in projects to control and prevent disease such as malaria and, of course, the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. We owe the Cubans a true national debt as Jamaicans, a true national debt. What's your opinion, Kill? What's your opinion? Those figures, when I was in the process of compiling them, I had to check, recheck, continue to check, and they're robust. These are accurate figures. What's your opinion?
I think for me it's outstanding. Yeah. It is outstanding, deploying 4,700 medical staff, deploying 3 times Jamaica's population have been treated. 3 times Jamaica's population have been treated. Saving 90,000 lives. Yes. We have to look at this and say, right, okay, this is the kind of expertise that we want in any community. I mean, any nation state that really considers its population to be of premium value would want to have this level of input. So yes. Jamaica has gained greatly. We've all gained greatly. I've personally gained from this program because clearly members of my family would have benefited from this program. Yes. There are people that I engage with today who wouldn't even be alive without this program being in place, because one of the there was over 7,000 births attended, and we know that infant mortality in poor nation states is a significant issue. It's an issue in the UK today, and the UK has issues with perinatal mortality. So for that medical input in Jamaica to have saved 7,000 lives, I mean, or 7,000 childbirth support. So essentially, the program is a great program, and it's the kind of program that we need nations to have in the 21st century, especially in a time where we're looking at newer forms of organizing happening. The whole AI revolution means that we need to be thinking about inserting expertise and sharing expertise. So this is a model for sharing expertise. That's what it is. It's a model for human beings sharing expertise.
Let me, if I may, enjoying with you, I want to give an applause, a powerful applause to the people of Cuba. Let me do this now. Just bear with me.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Cuba. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, the people of Cuba. Yeah.
I mean, they're standard bearers.
And I have to say, my friend, I don't see Jamaicans applauding the people of Cuba with that enthusiasm enough in recognition of the dedication that they have committed to Jamaica. I would continue to applaud them. I would continue to applaud them and say thank you, thank you, thank you.
So this inability of people to recognize that we have state structures that deliver equity over this idea of individual interests. And I think where we are in the world today is that this idea of individual interests seems to be taking us backward in terms of human society. Human beings are social beings.
Absolutely.
We're social beings. We're dependent on one another because we have this thing called a brain, which connects our bodies. It connects our organs, all of our organs together. And through this brain, we can connect with other human beings, not just in the present, in the past. We've just recalled 51 years of us working together. And how do we project that neural power into the future? How do we continue making these kinds of connections, which is what that relationship with Cuba symbolizes? Making the connections that value us.
It's okay. That is brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely. This is why you're here. Could you provide that philosophical foundation for our dialogue? I did want to remind the audience of the political pragmatism that has been applied to date by Jamaican governments. So, Michael Manley, the Honourable Michael Manley, in 1974 entered into the bilateral arrangement with Cuba that doctors and nurses would work in Jamaican hospitals and clinics. Of course, they remain the employees of the Cuban state. I say again, they remain the employees of the Cuban state. Cuba is only 90 miles away from Jamaica. They remain the employees of the Cuban state. I say that and I emphasize that for a good reason. I'll come back to later on. So he initiated it. In 1980 to 89, we had the Edward Seaga administration, a Jamaican Labour Party, JLP. No relationship to the Labour Party here in Britain, which is a Democratic Socialist Party. The Labour Party in Jamaica is more akin to the Republican Party in the United States of America. Okay, that gives you some idea of its fundamental philosophy.
JLP is conservative. They're conservative.
Most certainly, yes. If you use the English term, but certainly so. Most certainly so. But you've got international users. But despite the fact that Edward Seaga was an ardent anti-communist, anti-socialist, he claimed to be an ardent capitalist, and he campaigned against socialist states, communist states that sought egalitarian and to invest in the man and the woman and the child and the elderly. Yep, he was campaigning against that. Political pragmatism won over. During his reign, he maintained the bilateral arrangement. Why? Because not to maintain it would have resulted in Jamaicans dying on the streets because of lack of medical care. Because we wouldn't have the medical practitioners to support their clinical conditions. Can you imagine? So that hardened capitalist continued a socialist program.
Yeah.
In 1989 to 1992, Manley came back into power. Honourable Michael Manley came back into power and continued and strengthened the cooperation program with Cuba and extended it by including, not only did we importing nurses and doctors, of course, okay, but also, of course, biomedical engineers and, of course, surgeons. Very, very important. Surgeons were also being part of the program. He strengthened that cooperation program. In 1992 to 2006, we had Patterson, that great P.J. Patterson reign. He further expanded the medical mission and student training in Cuba. In other words, Jamaicans were going to Cuba to be trained as doctors, nurses, biomedical engineers, and surgeons. Absolutely. An investment in the people. Well done, PJ Patterson. I'd love to have him here on the Motivator Show. Okay. He was followed by, in 2006 to 2007, Portia Simpson Miller. Okay. She, of course, continued the program. She, of course, was PNP. She was followed by, in 2007, 2011, by Bruce Golding, a JLP, Jamaican Labour Party. Of course, despite any protestations, he continued the bilateral agreement because clearly it was in the national interest to do so. Absolutely in the national interest to do so. He was followed by, in 2011 to 2012, by his own Andrew Holness, okay? Despite any public protestation, he continued the bilateral arrangement with Cuba. He was followed by, in 2012 to 2016, by Portia Simpson Miller. She, of course, continued the program and continued to applaud the program, an example of cross-border cooperation of a kind that we need to see right across Africa and the Caribbean. Absolutely. Well done, Portia Simpson Miller. Again, a great Jamaican Prime Minister. A great Jamaican Prime Minister. She was followed by, in 2006, by Andrew Holness. Now, the program continues for years, but the government recently announced the termination of the bilateral arrangements following queries raised by Washington as to why Jamaica had such a program in place. Now, I want to talk about that. Because there's much to discuss here, and we need to get into the nitty-gritty. I listened to Andrew Holness recently talk about this and reasons why. I must say they seem quite weak as he described it, okay? Because bearing in mind, this is a bilateral agreement between two nation states, okay? The Cuban nationals remain direct employees of the Cuban state, yeah? In other words, Jamaica paid the Cuban state, and the Cuban state in turn paid their employees who work locally on the ground. That was the arrangement. Okay? Cuba is about 90 miles from Jamaica, and therefore it's right next door. So the issue that raised in public, and I did want to raise them with you, if I may, Abu Akil, because this is the nub of our dialogue today. The JLP government acknowledged that it began reviewing the agreement governing the medical missions after the United States stated that the program constitutes forced labor and after visas were revoked for officials from several countries in the Caribbean. In other words, American pressure. The Americans were saying, why have this bilateral agreement, which was clearly saving Jamaican lives? It was enabling Jamaicans to be trained as doctors, nurses, biomedical engineers, and surgeons. Okay, clearly saving people's lives, and the Americans questioned its efficacy and called it forced labor. I have to say, to date, again, if I've got this wrong, I'm not aware of a Cuban medical practitioner who've complained to the Jamaican government that they're being treated without respect and are not upholding the terms of the agreement that the medical practitioners entered into when they agreed to voluntarily enter this program. To date, I'm not aware of a single Cuban practitioner who's complained. In fact, I've had the opportunity to speak to 5 practitioners directly who unfortunately did not want to come live today, which is unfortunate, but I'll keep working on it. But in each and every case, they all said this in unison. And this is why I have to bow my head in, with a certain amount of, concern, a certain amount of concern. Here's what they said. Viva the revolution. Yeah, viva the revolution. What one woman described, she said, look, I volunteered to extend the revolution into Jamaica using my skills to help people, to save lives. I have a skill. She in fact is a specialist nurse. I have a skill. There are more skilled nurses in Cuba than Cuba can cope with. So it is perfectly natural that I will work for Cuba in Jamaica. Notice the mental difference? Yeah, work for Cuba in Jamaica and saving Jamaican lives. Viva the revolution. That's how she described it. Well, who am I? I can talk a lot, I can speak, but my gosh, I was overwhelmed by that. I said, but what about your living conditions? That's paid for. What about food? I've got enough. Viva the revolution, she said. Viva the revolution. Because without revolutionary change to the circumstances that my parents and grandparents had in the 50s, 40s, 30s, and 20s, which were deplorable, absolutely deplorable, we're living a life that is far more satisfying. How could you argue with that? Was that 10 years? I couldn't argue.
I find it really, really confusing that people should be people who, the whole idea of saying, look, people's rights, people's labor rights, which is the position that the Jamaican government's taking around people who don't have their passports and people who don't have their pay. Those are the arguments that are being presented by the Jamaica government, and it confuses
government
me.
On the
Jamaica Labour Party. It confuses me because we're looking at a transfer of skills, and we're talking about the transfer of very, very high skill sets. We're talking about people who have gone through at least 10 years of training, probably on average, and probably we're talking about 30 years of experience with each of those professionals. So we're talking about an enormous intellectual resource, economic value, 30 years of economic value that the state's just getting off of each one of those people, and saying somewhat, I think, disingenuously that their concern is for these individuals. I do not see how they can be saying their concerns are for these individuals. I don't know that these individuals, highly skilled individuals, wouldn't be able to go to any other state. I don't know that there are any restrictions on Cubans leave Cuba. I'm not aware of any such restrictions on Cubans, that somebody who's a highly qualified medical professional couldn't just jump on a boat and go somewhere else. I hear we're talking about these rubber dinghies.
Say that loud. Forgive me for interrupting. I think that's the point. At any point, these medical personnel could go to the US Embassy in Kingston and apply for political asylum, but they're not doing so. At any point, as you say, they could simply present themselves as Cuban, and they want to go in exile. Very few countries. Britain would take them. I'm pretty sure Britain would love to have them. But no, they're not doing so. She said, and they all said in between, "Viva the revolution." These are the human principles we're operating on. Yeah? We do not want to become like America. We do not want to be like that state. We do not want to be like that. We want to be Cuban. We want to uphold the values of human being, as you've explained it, Abu Akil, earlier on. Absolute values. And I'm pretty sure I can assert here with some confidence that the vast majority of the audience I'm listening to now, as we outline those basic human values that the state should uphold, that there's universal agreement that those principles are sound and make perfect sense. And investing in people mean that they'll give back to the state many times more. Can you remember? She said, "Viva the revolution." It continues till today. Well said.
And I think this thing about, I mean, there's a really deep philosophical issue here around what's real and what's expressed in policy. And I think this is where people kind of get mixed up between what the reality is, what these professionals' experience really is, and then what the policy is saying, and how do we reconcile the two? If we really want to know what people's feelings are and experiences are, we have to talk to them. We can't go along and say, well, because you've got grey hair, you think in this way, or because you've got a false teeth, you think in that way, or because your hand middle is white, you think in this way, or your hand back is... I mean, we have to communicate with people, and these health professionals, they're at the center of this equation. And they're health professionals who we know, if you're a health professional, if you're highly qualified, you're highly socially mobile. You can move around, as you said. If you're a Cuban and you're a highly qualified cardiologist, then there'll be no problem in you jumping ship and going to Miami or wherever and declaring. Britain would snap you up. America would snap you up. Russia would snap you up. China would snap you up. And most places would snap you up and they give you quite a healthy salary, thank you. They could come to the UK and get a salary of 150k with their 30 years experience. I know how to suture wounds that have come as a consequence of getting some rare condition. And come on, I mean, that level of expertise, we're not talking about people who are suffering. You know, if we look at generally the people who are kind of manipulated the most are the poor and the less skilled. We're not talking about people who are poor or who are less skilled. We're talking about people who are highly skilled, highly prized in the employment economy or in the economy. And so we're not talking about vulnerable people. If Jamaica has issues around labor legislation, then it isn't something that they can't navigate with the Cuban government and those medical professionals. And I question
let's be clear. Forgive me, my brother. Let's be clear, though. The JLP government of Andrew Onis is doing this not because it's in Jamaica's interest. They're simply kissing the feet of that bloke, the 47th president in the United States of America. The rabid right-wing policies that's coming out of Washington is warping the world order. Okay, that's what it is.
So as the head of state, Andrew Onis as the head of state, he was elected to represent the Jamaican population theoretically, and he's a part of that population. So his primary interest should be that Jamaica gets the best expertise, medical expertise possible. And it should be and his colleagues in Parliament, from his JLP colleagues and his PMP colleagues, because it is a parliament they have, should all be presenting to him the importance of retaining that expertise and finding ways to communicate with the Cuban government about how we resolve what is an administrative issue.
Yes.
The issue here, the issue of principle, is the issue of we need to share expertise. Andrew Holness has gone and studied in America, has gone and studied in the UK, has gone and studied around the world, and he should extend that same principle to others, the population, that they should be able to access global expertise. And the way that others in Jamaica access global expertise comes through that program. So if Andrew Holness values expertise which he's acquired from abroad, does he consider, and do other people in the parliament, because we've got a parliament, there's Jamaica Labour Party, there's People's National Party, do people in that house recognize that while they may well be able to access expertise by being able to get on a plane and buy their way into these expensive universities or these courses, do they not consider as a parliament that the rest of the population should have access to such expertise in their domestic hospitals by way of Cuban and other experts coming into Jamaica and sharing that expertise with the population at large? Don't the Jamaican parliamentarians consider this to be the way of the 21st century? Do they consider that the Jamaican population is of less value and less worth than them as parliamentarians?
You bring forward one of these fundamental points. The termination of this bilateral agreement, I'm not an expert, will cost lives.
It will.
It will cost lives. If I've got that wrong, look, I invite the JLP representative to provide evidence to contradict that statement. But if these practitioners are leaving en masse, they leave vacancies, expensive vacancies to fulfill. Okay, I would suspect it's going to be highly that Jamaica can quickly fill those vacancies. So it will cost lives. It most certainly will extend waiting list. It reduce the availability of specialist doctors and nurses. Yep. And as a result, it will cause hardship for Jamaica.
I can guarantee.
I invite them to correct it, but all the evidence suggests, according to the Ministry of the Medical of Health, that is so. They will leave a gap, personnel gap, that Jamaica is not in a position to fill. Sorry, you're about to say.
I can guarantee that as we speak, there's a Jamaican junior doctor who faces a crisis situation with with somebody who needs crisis care in Jamaica as we're speaking, and cannot get on the phone to senior Cuban specialist who they would have said, what procedure should I use here and now? They don't have that guide to call today. So that person's life is now going to be dependent on that junior doctor's knowledge, as opposed to that senior practitioner who's been carrying out this procedure for 20, 30 years, and also is tapped into a global community of expertise. So there is going to be a loss of lives when you withdraw that level of expertise from a system. It will cause loss of life. There's no doubt.
We're going to pause there, and I think you'd agree that conversations were getting hotter and hotter. And we had other surprising contributors to that debate. A surprise guest came in from the island of Cuba and provided some really fundamental information. But that will be contained in the podcast series, which will be published in the next 6 or 8 hours' time once it's been fully curated. Okay. But as you can see, that dialogue was jam packed full of information, insights that is not available generally in the general public domain. But you heard the words of the Cuban practitioners, Viva the Revolution. Yes, understanding this is what was happening. Okay. But if we got it wrong, it's some of the information shared that we've been very careful to check, treble check to ensure accuracy. You believe it's wrong, and you have evidence to support your assertion the information is wrong, we invite you to write to us. And let me put up on the screen for you our email address, because if in doubt, we say to you, ask questions, write to us here, tell us what we got wrong, or indeed tell us what we got right. It's quite fine, absolutely fine. Okay. The Motivator Show 501 at gmail.com. I repeat, The Motivator Show 501 at gmail.com. There you are. If you wish to write to us, if you've got it right, absolutely fine. Got anything wrong in terms of the details shared, please, you're invited to write to us. And we promise that we will, if we got it wrong, in our next podcast, put the records straight, because integrity is important to us. But the end of that part of the dialogue, which said there's some surprise contributors that came into that dialogue, and you'll be truly amazed by the contribution. Okay. If we've got it wrong, you tell us, okay, and you give us the evidence. If we've got it right, still write to us. We'd like to hear from you anyway. Okay. But what is more important, that this quality of dialogue with the level of content is simply not generally available on social media. So we wanted to fill that gap. And we hope you found that useful and provide useful insight as to the reality of the situation. We ended on a slightly dour note. It is inevitable the sudden termination of this bilateral agreement will cost lives. Yeah. It's almost impossible that it's not so. Almost certainly cause an additional waiting list to see your doctors, your surgeon, or indeed to get a result and need the biomedical engineers to give you the result, or indeed a surgery, which is now delayed because we don't have enough surgeons in time. Yeah. It is inevitable. This is likely to cost lives. I'm of the opinion, you may not be, but if you are, please got our email address, that is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. We need the PNP opposition to be more forthright in their denunciation of the situation which befalls us. It cannot be right that this agreement is terminated in this manner without sufficient transition or indeed replacement for what has been lost. Mhm. It is unacceptable. Unacceptable. This is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is indeed ours for the taking. And if you found that podcast a stimulating experience, there's more of that podcast to come. Watch out for the sequence to appear in the channel in the next 6 to 8 hours' time, once it's been fully curated. Please share the links with your network. Spread the words. If you haven't subscribed, we urge you to subscribe to our channel, or at least give us a thumbs up to acknowledge the content was to your liking, so that the YouTube algorithm will spread the word for us. But we remain dedicated to providing authoritative information with full integrity so that you can be inspired, so you can continue to improve your life, your family's lives, your network lives, and together we can transform the world. And I hope that you found that particular podcast a stimulating experience. We here at the Motivator Show will certainly find each of these episodes truly stimulating. And we hope you would agree that if we work together, we can transform the outlook together. So I remain, until the next time, the Motivator.
Did Jamaica betray Cuba to appease a self-centered foreign power? In destroying the solidarity between Jamaica and Cuba, has and Your Highness, the leader of the JLP government of Jamaica, put Jamaican lives at risk, extending waiting time to see GPs or have surgical procedures, put at risk maternity care, reduced the number of Jamaicans who could have their sights restored.
Get out! 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 Get out!
Look,
Get out!
and Your Highness, leader of the JLP party of Jamaica, the government of Jamaica. Am I weird? Get out! Get out!
Get out!
Care? Am I go foreign to get in
Get out!
medical care?
Get out! 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 Get out!
What a thingy? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? What a thingy? What a thingy? Am I go foreign to get in medical care? What a thingy? The Motivator Show will examine the evidence